to welcome everyone back to So-Called Experts. As you guys can see by the title, today we're going to talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, I know football's taken over this country. You know, it's great. You know, it's entertaining, it's hard-hitting, it's fast. You know, even the NBA has a lot of action going on. But to me, when you think about Hall of Fames, when you think about numbers, when you think about statistics, to me, none of those other sports even comes close to baseball. You know, when you think about baseball, I can tell you right now, just off the top of your head, you know numbers because they're so relevant to the game. You know, if you ask someone in football, what is the all-time rushing statistics? You know, you don't know. You may know it's Emmitt Smith, but you don't know the statistic. You know, and receiving, what are the yards? How many yards does Jerry Rice have? You don't know. You know Jerry Rice has all of the records, but you don't know the numbers. Because in football, it's about, you know, it's more than numbers. You know, there's aspects to the game. When in baseball, it's all about numbers. You know, you can have different impacts on the game. You can be Derek Jeter and have all of these intangibles, you know, have all these things, but it comes down to numbers. You know, when you look at the Hall of Fame, you know, I can tell you off the top of my head, most home runs ever, 755. You know, now I'm not going to talk about Barry Bonds. We'll talk about steroids in a little bit. But, you know, to me, the all-time home run leader will always be Hank Aaron. And I know that his career home run total is 755. I know that Babe Ruth is second. You know, he's 714. I know that Willie Mays should be third. He's at 660. You know these numbers. You know, if you ask me who has the most career wins, you know, I know it's Cy Young with 511 career wins. You know, with baseball, that's the thing that makes it so magical. You know, you can just say numbers and correlate them to people. You know, now, you know, and baseball, I did some research earlier and I looked. There are currently 297 members in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, only 207 of those are players. You know, you have managers, executives, you have umpires, you know, you have a few Negro League baseball players who got elected into the Hall of Fame but never played in the majors. Now, think about this. Baseball has been played for over 100 years. Since the late 1800s, we've been keeping stats on Major League Baseball. And there are only 207 players who have ever made it into the Hall of Fame. Now, to me right there, that's what makes the Hall of Fame great. You know, it's so elite. You know, and sometimes I get mad. The one knock I have against the Hall of Fame is I feel it's getting soft. You know, you have guys who have been on a ballot for years. You know, for an example, Jim Rice. You know, he was a good player with the Red Sox. He has good numbers, but he was on the Hall of Fame ballot for 15 years. That means he was eligible. You know, well, everyone's eligible, but he was considered for 15 years. The writers did not vote him in the Hall of Fame. He did not get a high enough percentage to get elected. And on his 15th year, you only have 15 years of eligibility before you are no longer considered. On his 15th year, he got voted in. Now, to me, it's like, that's kind of a sympathy vote. You know, like if you can't get in the Hall of Fame in 15 years, you should not be in the Hall of Fame. To me, I don't want to see Jim Rice next to Babe Ruth, next to Ricky Henderson, next to Willie Mays. He's not on that caliber. Now, no one's on Willie Mays' caliber, but still, he's not deserving. You know what I mean? Now, I can already see what's happening because, as you guys might know, you know, a lot of the guys that vote for these are writers. You know, and these writers cover their own teams. You know, it's a Boston Red Sox writer, it's a Oakland A's, it's a Los Angeles Dodgers, it's a New York Yankees sports writers that write. Now I can already see these Boston Red Sox writers in the corner every year just talking to their buddies, telling them how great Jim Rice was, telling them how much of a travesty it would be if they did not put Jim Rice in the Hall of Fame. Because for years they watched him play as Red Sox writers and appreciated what he did for their team. You know, and we all know how crooked and how, you know, inaccurate sports writers can be. You know, just a couple years ago, I think 2009, Joe Mauer won the MVP award. You know, that year Derek Jeter had an unbelievable year. He was like third in the league in hitting. You know, he had runs, he had RBIs, he was a Gold Glover. You know, and a lot of the voters had him either second or third to Joe Mauer, but he was top 3 in every single ballot that was cast except one. A Boston Red Sox writer had Derek Jeter at 11th. He had 10 players better than Derek Jeter. Now, you can't tell me that has nothing to do with him being a Boston Red Sox fan. You know, so there's something we need to do to clean up the process of Baseball Hall of Fames. Because like I said earlier, you know, Not only was it Jim Rice, it was Bert Blyleven waiting till his 14th year. You know, the guy like Andre Dawson waited till like his 10th year. All these guys are getting in on sympathy votes. I want the Hall of Fame to stay elites. You know, when I go, I don't want to see names of people I don't recognize. You know, 10 years from now, do you think anyone's going to remember Bert Blyleven or Jim Rice? And a lot of guys don't even know who Jim Rice is now. You know, but I can tell you right now, the first class ever elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is probably still the best ever. You know, I looked it up. It was 1937. Never be equaled. But this is what I love to see. First class ever. You have Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, and Honus Wagner. I mean, those names right there will never be forgotten. Should be players who just, you look at them and you're like, hands down, oh, that guy's in. You know, we knew watching him play that Tony Gwynn was going to get in, that Cal Ripken was going to get in, Reggie Jackson was going to get in. You knew Lou Gehrig, Ted Williams, Ozzie Smith. You knew Griffey was going to get in. You know, we knew A-Rod was going to get in until this whole steroids things, which will bring me into the steroid conversation. You know, you can't talk Baseball Hall of Fame, you can't talk baseball without talking steroids. Unfortunately, I don't like it. I hate these players. You know, the fact that I stated earlier, my home run king will always be Hank Aaron. I will always recognize 755 as the record. Now, I think Barry Bonds has 760 something. I'm not even sure because I refuse to memorize that number. I will never recognize that number as the home run total champion. You know, I just won't do it. Some people say, put them in the Hall of Fame. Players like Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Roger Clemens, who are clearly have the numbers to be Hall of Famers, you know, put them in their own category, put an asterisk next to them. To me, if you put an asterisk next to these guys, you're bringing down the Hall of Fame. You know, the Hall of Fame was made for these great players. Now, some people might say, hey, well, back in the day, you know, they were taking greenies or they were taking pills. You know, they were on something. Yeah, you know, Babe Ruth was on beers and hot dogs. But, you know, it didn't make him better. You know, the difference between drugs and performance-enhancing drugs, to me, is obviously like marijuana is illegal. You know, you shouldn't drink too much. But those drugs don't help you on the field. You know, I can't imagine a high Babe Ruth having better numbers than a sober one. You know, beer didn't help him. If he would have stayed sober, his career would have been even more great. You know, but when you have, and then greenies, you know, was a big thing in the 70s. Greenies, from what I hear, are nothing more than just energy pills. You know, to me, that's probably like taking a 5-hour energy nowadays. You know, it might wake you up, it might give you a little energy, but I don't see it making you hit 73 home runs in a season, like Barry Bonds. You know, Barry Bonds had never hit more than 46 home runs in a season. Throughout his career, he had a Hall of Fame career. Watching Barry Bonds growing up, I knew he was a Hall of Famer, you know? And then all of a sudden, he turns 37 years old, and he hits 49 with the Giants. And then, you know, his head's getting a little bigger. His feet are getting a little bigger. Granted, his jersey's getting a little bigger, but everyone's jersey gets a little bigger as you get a little older. But I've never heard of anyone's hat and feet growing when you're 37 years old. Then he's 38, and he goes out and hits 73 home runs in a season. And by this time, his head is gigantic. It's mammoth. You know, his feet are extra wide. Some people say, well, you know, steroids doesn't help your hand-eye coordination. I agree, it doesn't. But here's the thing. It makes everyone better. It won't make me and you into Hall of Famers. You know, it's not going to just turn the average person into a Hall of Famer. But here's what it does do. Is it turns the AAA player into a major league player. It turns the average player into an all-star. And it turns the all-star into a Hall of Famer. You know, that's what it does. It doesn't create a baseball player. It doesn't turn someone from 0 to 100, but it just helps you move one level up. So if you're a, you know, 30-year-old who's never been past AAA, and you just know this is your last hurrah, and if you don't do it now, no one's going to sign you, you know, once you get past 30, I'm going to take steroids. I'm going to make one last shot to get into the show. You know, not that I respect that, but I can kind of understand where you're coming from. But when you're talking about you're talking about Barry Bonds. Here's the worst to me is Barry Bonds. When your father was a former Major League Baseball player, a really good one at that, and your godfather is Willie Mays. Why would you ever do something to taint the game so bad? he was already a great baseball player. In Pittsburgh, when he was with the Pirates, he was great. You know, he was everything. He was power, speed, he was average, he was a good outfielder. He was a 5'2" player. He looked like Willie Mays. He looked like his godfather. And then you come to Frisco, and here's the thing a lot of people have speculated was, as great of a player as he was, once he moved to Frisco, he wasn't getting the attention. Because who was getting it? Guys like McGuire, guys like Sosa, guys who were hitting 60, 70 home runs a season, taking all of the highlights, all of the attention. You know, the guys who are on ESPN every night, you know, were taking all the attention. So Barry Bonds starts thinking, well, what do I got to do to get on sport? What do I got to do to get recognized? You know, he couldn't handle it. He had to make that point that he was the best, and it cost him.